In every war zone, rumors travel faster than bullets. Soldiers brag about impossible shots, medals shine on uniforms, and legends grow in the shadows. But at Blackstone Forward Operating Base, no legend caused more confusion than the woman they called Ghost Mark. A lone sniper with a hood, a cold silence, and a tattoo no one understood. Most mocked it, until the day she lifted her hood and the SEAL commander himself froze. Intro: United War. Welcome back to United War, where untold military stories rise from the silence. Today we follow a mysterious sniper whose identity was hidden, not just from enemies, but from the very soldiers she protected. What began as mockery became a moment the entire base would never forget. Story begins. Blackstone FOB sat on the edge of a desert valley, heat shimmering off the sand like rising smoke. Supply trucks rumbled in, Marines joked loudly near the motor pool, and new recruits tried to look tougher than they felt. But in the middle of all that noise, she walked. A hooded figure, slender, silent, carrying a long rifle case slung over her shoulder. Her name, at least the one on the roster, was Sergeant Erin Vale. No one knew much about her. She rarely spoke, always arrived early for briefing, and disappeared after missions. But the most noticeable thing about her wasn't her silence. It was the black, crescent-shaped tattoo on her wrist. Simple, sharp, unfamiliar, and easy for others to mock. Two Marines near the gate nudged each other as she passed. "Nice tattoo," whispered one with a smirk. "Trying to look scary?" The other laughed. "Probably some edgy sniper squad, but she hasn't fired a real shot." Erin didn't react. She didn't flinch. Her steps remained calm and controlled. But inside the operations room, someone else noticed her entrance. At the far end of the room stood Commander Reed Maddox, veteran SEAL team leader, known for icy focus and a record of impossible missions. He didn't look up at first until Erin walked past him. His eyes lifted, just for a second. A flicker of recognition. But impossible. He dismissed it. The mockery continues. Later that afternoon, the range was filled with the crack of gunfire. Marines tested new rifles, shouted instructions, and snapped jokes at each other. Erin set her black rifle case on the farthest table. Dozens of eyes watched her. Whispers followed. "That tattoo looks like a moon someone drew blindfolded. She probably copied it from some video game faction. Must be a rookie." She ignored the laughter, pulling out a weapon wrapped in dark cloth. When she unwrapped it, the room felt slightly quieter, not because they respected her, but because the rifle looked nothing like theirs. Long, dark, customized barrel, a marksman weapon built for distances no one here could imagine. Still, the jokes kept coming. "Is that thing even sighted in? Can she even hold that without falling over?" But Erin wasn't listening. She lowered herself on the mat, her posture flawless and calm. The posture of someone who had done this thousands of times. And then, crack. One shot. The farthest steel plate, 1,200 meters away, rang like a bell. The Marines stared. She fired again. Crack. Another perfect hit. Someone muttered, "Lucky, has to be." But Erin displayed no emotion, only precision. Commander Maddox watches. Inside the control booth, Commander Reed Maddox watched her through the observation window. He wasn't laughing, he wasn't mocking. Something about the way she moved, the way she handled the rifle, felt eerily familiar. But no, it couldn't be. Not that person. Not here. He stepped outside, folding his arms as he approached her firing lane. The Marines tensed. SEAL commanders didn't walk the range unless something significant was happening. Erin sensed him before he arrived. She lifted her rifle, emptied the chamber, and set it down. Maddox studied her hooded face, trying to see beyond the shadows. "You new here?" She nodded once.
Transfer. From where? Silence. She simply began packing her rifle. Some Marines snickered behind them. She probably doesn't even understand the question. Tattoo squad must be secret. Super secret. Aaron ignored them. Maddox didn't. His voice sharpened. You three, range discipline, quiet. They shut up immediately. But when Maddox turned back to face Aaron, she was already walking away, rifle in hand, hood low, tattoo visible. And for some reason, he couldn't shake the feeling he had seen that tattoo before. The storm before the reveal. That night, alarms echoed across the base. An AN convoy had been ambushed deep in the valley. Visibility was low. Nightfall dropped fast. They needed a sniper. A good one. A precise one. But the base's official sniper team was hours away on a recon mission. Maddox rushed into the command tent as intel officers scrambled. We need eyes on the ridge, he said. Anyone we have. A young lieutenant swallowed. There's Sergeant Aaron Vale, the new transfer. He froze a moment. That hooded one? The one everyone's been mocking? Yes, sir. But her marksmanship, it's remarkable. He didn't hesitate. Get her. Now. Minutes later, Aaron stepped into the command tent, hood still on, rifle strapped to her back. Maddox pointed at the live feed of the ambush zone. We need a sniper who can do the impossible tonight. Aaron didn't speak. She only reached up, grabbing the edge of her hood. The tent fell silent. As she pulled the hood back, Maddox's breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened, because the face beneath the hood and the tattoo on her wrist belonged to someone he thought was long gone. A legend, a ghost, a sniper whose name was spoken only in classified corridors. And now she stood right in front of him.
The air inside the command tent thickened the moment her hood came down. No one breathed, no one blinked, and Commander Reed Maddox felt the ground shift under him. There she was, the woman whose name he never thought he'd hear again, Captain Aaron Vale, callsign Spectre, a legend whispered about in operations rooms, mentioned in classified files, the ghost sniper whose missions were so deep, so precise, that they still remained redacted in military archives. She wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Most believed she had been killed 2 years earlier during an off-record operation that never made it into any briefing. But here she stood, alive, calm, and watching Maddox with silent eyes. The SEAL commander's shock. The young intel officer dropped his tablet. A communications sergeant's jaw fell open. Someone whispered, barely audible, Spectre. That's the black crescent tattoo, the mark of the ghost unit. Maddox exhaled slowly, steadying himself. Captain Vale, he said, at last, voice lower than usual. I thought we lost you in Wraith Valley. Her eyes flickered just once. I wasn't the one they wanted found, she replied, short, controlled, just like always. Maddox felt the weight of those words. He remembered the classified after-action briefings, the empty caskets, the silence surrounding the disappearance of the Ghost Unit, an elite sniper operations division that technically didn't exist. And that tattoo everyone mocked, that small black crescent, the one Marines joked about and laughed at earlier. It was the insignia worn only by members of the Ghost Unit, an ultra-classified special operations sniper team whose missions required absolute secrecy. Only 3 people in the entire military hierarchy outranked them, and one of them was Maddox himself. Suddenly, everyone understood why he was staring. The urgent mission. Maddox pulled himself together. He said, "We don't have time to unpack this." He motioned her forward. The convoy is pinned down on Ridge 7. Enemy positions are dug in across 3 elevations. He tapped the map. Visibility is collapsing. If we don't clear a path in the next 15 minutes, we lose them. Aaron stepped closer, her eyes scanning the terrain. noting angles, wind direction, elevation spread, calculations flashing through her mind as naturally as breathing. Without hesitation, she said, "I need height. The northern tower." He raised an eyebrow. "That tower's been unstable for months." "It'll hold for the time I need." He knew better than to argue. If anyone could make the impossible shot, it was her. The base reacts. Word spread through the FOB like wildfire. "Spectre is alive." "That's her, the hooded sniper?" "You mean the one we made fun of at the range?" The same Marines who mocked her tattoo earlier now stood frozen in the shadows, watching her stride across camp with her rifle slung low, her face calm, her movements precise. One of them whispered, We joked about her shooting. She hit the 1,200-meter target like nothing." Another swallowed, guilt sinking in. "We thought she was just trying to look tough." As Aaron walked past them, they straightened subconsciously, like their bodies saluted before their minds caught up. But Aaron didn't look at them. She had only one focus: the ridge. Night had fallen. Darkness covered the valley like a heavy blanket. Distant explosions echoed in a steady rhythm as enemy fire pinned the convoy down. Aaron climbed the old communications tower with ease, her boots barely making a sound against the rusted metal. Maddox watched from below, speaking into the radio. "Spectres on station. All teams hold fire unless directed." Inside the tower, she reached the shattered top platform. The wind howled, metal creaked, but she barely noticed. She unpacked her rifle, matte black, long-barreled, customized with silent stabilization tech, a weapon that had ended more conflicts than most battalions. She lay prone, adjusting the scope. Through her lens, the ridge lit up with enemy flashes. "Spectre to command," she said. "Eyes on target cluster Alpha. I count 8 hostiles." Maddox replied, "Confirmed. Convoy reports 2 wounded, 1 critical." Aaron's pulse remained steady. Her breathing slowed. The world narrowed to a single moment. Then, crack, 1 hostile dropped instantly. Before the sound reached the ridge, she had already lined up her next shot. Crack, crack, crack. 3 more down. The enemy line began to scatter, unsure where the invisible shots were coming from. "Spectre to command," she said calmly. "Alpha cluster neutralized, shifting to Bravo." Maddox watched the real-time feed, shaking his head in disbelief. He said, "She hasn't slowed down one bit." Inside the secondary tent, members of SEAL Team 7 crowded around the screen. They weren't laughing. They weren't talking. Chief Petty Officer Granger squinted. "No way. That pattern. That timing." Lieutenant Harlow whispered, "That's her. No one else hits that clean and win like this." "Spectre," Granger said in awe in his voice. "The ghost sniper." The room fell silent. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were elite operators. But even they knew Spectre was on another level entirely. One of them muttered, "We should have recognized the tattoo." Lieutenant Harlow shook his head. "No, we just weren't ready to believe the stories were real." The final shot, and the plan no one expected. Back in the tower, Aaron shifted positions. "2 hostiles retreating behind the ridge," she reported. "They're going to flank the convoy." Maddox replied, "Convoy doesn't have line of sight. Can you reach them?" "Negative. Too much terrain interference." For the first time, her voice carried a hint of tension. Maddox exhaled. "We need another plan." Aaron adjusted her scope again, then said quietly, "Send me in." Maddox froze. "That's a direct infiltration. You'd be alone." She said, "I've been alone before. And last time nearly killed the entire—" She cut him off, firm. "We're out of time." He knew she was right. The convoy would fall within minutes. He swallowed hard. "In permission, granted. Move." Erin dismantled her rifle in seconds, dropped the pieces into her pack, and slid down the ladder with fluid precision. As she jogged past the Marines and SEALs gathering near the vehicles, every single one of them stepped aside, not because they were ordered, but because they now knew exactly who she was, a legend in the flesh, a ghost returned, Captain Erin Spectre Vale.
The night swallowed her whole as Erin moved beyond the safety of the forward operating base. Moonlight broke through thin clouds and fractured beams, turning the ridge into a jagged silhouette. Every step she took seemed too quiet for the gravel beneath her boots. That was her way, soundless, controlled, precise, the kind of movement only someone trained for invisible warfare could master. Behind her, the SEALs, Marines, and operators watched her fade into the dark. No orders told them to stay silent. Respect did. The approach. Erin kept low as she crossed the open span between the base and Ridge 7. The wind had picked up, bringing dust across the valley. Dust she used to cover, blending in with every gust. Her radio crackled softly. Maddox whispered, "Spectre, confirm position." She crouched behind a cluster of rocks, scanning ahead. 200 meters from enemy flank, no visual yet. Maddox exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. To the others listening in, her voice was calm, almost quiet. To Maddox, it was the same voice that had once guided impossible missions, a voice he thought he would never hear again. The convoy's medic broke in. "Critical casualty slipping, if we can't move soon." Erin responded before Maddox could. "They won't touch the convoy. Not tonight." The enemy camp. The enemy had set up a temporary overlook. 6 fighters, maybe more, tucked behind rocks and tree trunks, watching the convoy's trapped position below. Erin lowered her body into the dirt and crawled forward, her hood now tied back to keep her peripheral clear. From this distance, she could see the glint of their scopes. One of them adjusted his rifle, angling for the injured soldier. Her pulse slowed. Her breathing steadied. Her hand slipped silently toward the smaller, suppressed sidearm she kept at her thigh. She counted them again. 6 visible, she reported. Possibility of 2 more out of sight. Maddox answered, "Roger. No support teams near your position. You're dark." She almost smiled. "I prefer it that way." The first move. A twig snapped under an enemy boot. Erin froze, eyes narrowing. 2 of the fighters were moving toward her direction, carelessly, confident in the darkness, unaware that death was inches away. She waited, then moved, fast, silent. A hand around the first man's mouth, the other snapping his wrist so the rifle fell quietly. She lowered him to the ground and dragged him back into the shadows. The second turned, confused. He barely opened his mouth before the handle of her knife tapped the side of his skull. No blood, no mess, just unconscious silence. She dragged him beside the first and whispered into her comm, 2 down, 4 left. Maddox muttered, "Copy. Damn, Spectre." The SEALs listening from the tent exchanged stunned looks. One whispered, "She took them out with no sound. I didn't even hear it on comms." Another muttered, "Now I understand why they called her Ghost." The flank collapses. Erin crept closer, in the center now. The remaining 4 didn't realize their numbers had halved. She positioned herself behind a jagged boulder, watching them coordinate. One aimed toward the convoy, another adjusted a radio, the other 2 scanned the valley. She reached into a pouch and removed a small flash strip, one of the old Ghost unit tools, compact, silent, and deadly only in the right hands. She tossed it lightly to the left. It landed against a tree trunk with a soft thud. The flash detonated with a dim burst, barely visible but enough to blind for 2 seconds. 2 seconds was a lifetime for Spectre. She lunged out. Tap. First man down. Crack. Second disarmed and unconscious. The last two spun around, finally realizing something was wrong. One fired blindly. The bullet missed her by inches. Erin slid under the muzzle, grabbed the rifle by the barrel, twisted, and drove her elbow into the attacker's sternum. He collapsed instantly. The final enemy raised his hands, breath trembling. He saw her tattoo and froze. The crescent. The mark he had only heard rumors about. "You," he stuttered. "You're the—" Erin pressed 2 fingers to her lips, a quiet signal. He fainted before finishing the sentence. She whispered, calm as ever. Spectre to command. Flank neutralized. The convoy erupted over comms, relief flooding their voices. Maddox's voice cracked slightly. "You bought them their exit. Confirm if you're clear." Erin scanned the ridge. But then, movement. A shadow. Someone she hadn't accounted for. The unknown sniper. A shot rang out, sharp, distant. Erin dove behind a boulder as a bullet shattered the rock above her head. Maddox shouted over the comm, "Spectre, report." "Sniper," she said low. "High caliber. Good position." Another shot hit the dirt by her feet. This one was close. Too close. Maddox barked new orders. "All teams, divert drones. Get her eyes." A SEAL operator snapped. "Deploying microdrone. 10 seconds." Erin steadied her breathing, analyzing angles. This shooter wasn't spraying bullets. They were calculating, predicting, anticipating her movement. Which meant this wasn't a random enemy sniper. This was a trained marksman. Possibly someone who studied Ghost Unit tactics. Possibly someone who expected her. Another shot whistled by. Erin narrowed her eyes. "He knows who I am." "Spectre, fall back." "No," she said. "He's not after the convoy. He's after me." Maddox burst under his breath. "Then we come to you." Erin shook her head. "You'll never reach me in time." A soft whirring sound appeared overhead, the microdrone arriving. "Drone online, sending visuals," SEAL Tech Officer Harris reported. The feed streamed into Maddox's tablet. There on the far ridge, a single barrel glinted under the moonlight. Harris zoomed in. Maddox's blood ran cold. The sniper wore the same tattoo, a black crescent, but inverted. No, it can't be. "Spectre," he said, voice barely steady. "You're facing a Ghost Unit traitor." Erin didn't flinch. "I know." Another shot cracked the night. This one even closer. She tightened her grip on her rifle, eyes turning sharp as glass. "Send everyone back," she said quietly. "Spectre, this is between him and me." Maddox looked at the feed again. He knew she was right. This wasn't a random firefight. This was unfinished business. Ghost against ghost. A duel written long before tonight. And only one of them would walk away.
The wind cut across the ridge, carrying dust, tension, and the unmistakable weight of 2 ghosts preparing to clash. Erin, Spectre Vale, rose slowly from behind the boulder, her silhouette framed by moonlight. She no longer crawled or hid. Her posture changed, shoulders squared, chin lifted. She wasn't stalking anymore. She was inviting. Across the valley, the sniper responded with silence, a silence that told her everything. He recognized the challenge. The standoff. Maddox's voice bled through her calm, tense and low. "Spectre, our teams are begging for permission to move in. Just say the word." Erin watched the distant muzzle glint again. "No," she whispered. "This ends on my terms." Maddox clenched his jaw, knowing there was nothing he could say to change her mind. She had always been like this, calm in storms, lethal in chaos, stubborn in danger. But today, this wasn't just a mission. This was personal. The traitor. The traitor on the far ridge adjusted his position. The moonlight struck his face just long enough for Erin to see the unmistakable scar across his cheek. Her breath caught. She knew that scar. She had caused that scar years ago during the final Ghost Unit mission before everything fell apart. A mission that divided loyalties and left survivors on opposite sides. The traitor slowly lowered his rifle, not in surrender, but in recognition. He lifted 2 fingers to his forehead in a mock salute, then pointed toward her. A challenge. A message. You won't walk away from this one. Erin activated her comm. Spectre to command. Disable my channel. Erin, Maddox started. She cut him off. This is between ghosts now. The line snapped dead. Maddox slammed his fist into the table. Nobody in the command tent dared to speak. The hunt begins. Erin moved first, sprinting low toward a new boulder cluster. A sniper round chased her steps, blasting apart the dirt where she had just been. She slid behind cover, heart steady, mind colder than the night. The traitor moved too, his position changing, trying to circle, trying to anticipate her next point of cover. This wasn't ordinary sniping. This was chess with bullets. Every position she ducked behind, he countered. Every angle she attempted, he anticipated. She knew exactly why. He had trained under the same doctrine, the same instructors, the same unforgiving Ghost Unit rules. Which meant he knew her style, but she knew his. Turning the tables. She pulled a small metallic bead from her pouch, an old Ghost Unit tool rarely used anymore, a sound decoy bead. She pressed it between her fingers and tossed it to her right. The bead bounced across rocks, a perfect imitation of boots moving. The traitor fired, not at her, at the bead. Erin didn't waste the second he had just given her. She dashed left, rising from cover with her rifle leveled. She fired 1 round, aiming not at him, but at the rock inches from his elbow. The bullet ricocheted. The traitor grunted as the shard tore his sleeve, forcing him to roll back and reacquire position. He was good, very good, but she was better. Close quarters. Erin stopped firing, stopped moving, stopped breathing. She let silence settle, let him wonder where she'd gone. Then she began circling down the ridge, silent as fog, invisible as shadow. Her boots found memory pathways in the dark, using terrain she had memorized long before tonight. By the time the traitor realized she was no longer across from him, she was behind him. A branch shifted under his knee. Erin struck. They collided in a blur, rifles skidding across the dirt. The traitor punched hard, landing a hit to her ribs. She countered instantly with a shoulder slam, knocking him off balance. He lunged again, fast, violent, desperate. But Erin sidestepped, grabbed his forearm, twisted, and slammed him to the ground with a precision throw that only Ghost operatives learned. He hit the dirt hard, gasping. Erin pinned his wrist with her boot. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why betray everything we built?" He spat blood, glare sharp. "You left us. You walked away while the rest of us were hunted. I survived alone. No unit, no country, only myself." Erin's jaw tightened. "You could have come back,"
she said. He laughed bitterly. There was no back for me, only forward. His hand twitched, reaching for a concealed blade. Erin reacted instantly. Her knee drove into his chest, knocking the air out of him. She grabbed the blade, flipped it, and pressed it against his collar. He froze. And there, for the first time, his facade cracked. Fear, not of dying, but of losing the only fight he believed he had left. "You can't kill me," he gasped. "We're the same." Erin shook her head slowly. "No, I never abandoned what we were. You did." And with a final, merciful strike, clean, silent, precise, she ended it. The traitor's body fell still. A ghost returned to the earth. Aftermath. Erin stood over him, breathing deeply as the wind swept across the ridge. The microdrone hovered overhead, red recording light blinking. The SEALs, Marines, and operators watching in the tent were speechless. Finally, Maddox opened her channel remotely. His voice came through, shaken, relieved, almost reverent. "Spectre, is it done?" She scanned the ridge one last time. "It's done," she said softly. Cheers erupted on the convoy comm channel. The wounded soldier was already being moved to extraction. The valley was secure. But Erin didn't celebrate. She simply turned her back to the ridge, walking quietly toward the convoy lights below. As she approached, the soldiers parted instinctively, like a tide moving aside for something greater than rank or title. Some whispered, some stared, some saluted without even thinking. Maddox approached her last. "You saved them all," he said, "and you didn't have to." Erin met his eyes for the first time since the battle ended. "I did it because they needed me, and because ghosts don't run." The wind rustled her hood as she walked past him. And Maddox, hardened commander of men, watched her go with the same thought every witness felt tonight.